You are not stuck because you are weak. You are stuck because some habits quietly drain your strength every single day. These are not dramatic or obvious habits that shock you into change. They are silent, subtle, and deeply familiar. They feel normal, comfortable, and safe, which is exactly why they gain control over your future without you noticing. They blend so smoothly into your routine that you stop questioning them. You wake up with them, move through your day with them, and fall asleep believing nothing is wrong, while slowly they shape the direction of your life. These habits do not destroy your life in one sudden moment. They work patiently, day after day, taking small pieces of your focus, your courage, and your self-respect. Over time, you begin to feel tired without a clear reason, unmotivated without understanding why, and disappointed in yourself even though you cannot point to a single major mistake. The danger is not in how powerful these habits are, but in how quietly they operate while you are busy surviving instead of growing. If you do not break these habits now, 2026 will not feel like a new beginning. It will feel like a repetition of everything you already regret. The same goals will remain unfinished, the same excuses will sound convincing, and the same sense of wasted potential will follow you forward. Most people believe change requires force, pressure, or extreme discipline, but real change begins with awareness. The moment you clearly see what is draining your strength, it starts to lose its grip on you. Stay with me till the end, because one of these habits is not something you think you do only sometimes. It is something shaping your decisions, your confidence, and your future every single day without your permission. Once you recognize it, you will realize that the reason you feel stuck is not a lack of ability, but a pattern you are finally ready to break. Stoic philosophy teaches one hard truth that most people never fully accept. Life does not change simply because time moves forward. Days turn into months, months turn into years, and people convince themselves that growth is happening just because they are staying busy. But the Stoics were clear about this. Time itself does nothing for you. Only a disciplined mind can transform a life. Without discipline, time becomes something that passes over you instead of something you use. This is why so many people look back and feel shocked by how little has changed despite how hard life felt. The Stoics believed that true freedom begins inside the mind. Not when money increases, not when relationships improve, and not when life becomes comfortable. Freedom begins the moment your habits stop betraying you. An undisciplined mind reacts to everything, chases comfort, avoids discomfort, and slowly gives away control. A disciplined mind chooses its responses, accepts discomfort when necessary, and protects its inner stability. This difference may seem small, but over time it decides whether a person becomes strong or remains trapped. From a Stoic perspective, most suffering is not caused by events themselves but by unconscious patterns repeated every day. Habits are powerful because they shape your thoughts before you are even aware of them. They decide how you respond to stress, how you handle failure, and how long you stay stuck in fear or distraction. When habits are weak, even small problems feel overwhelming. When habits are strong, even heavy pressure becomes manageable. This is why the Stoics focused less on changing the world and more on mastering the self. Today, we are exposing 6 deadly habits that silently hold people back. These are not habits that look destructive at first glance. They feel normal. They feel justified. Some of them even feel responsible, but they quietly drain focus, discipline, and self-respect over time. These habits do not steal your life all at once. They steal it slowly, one distracted day, one avoided decision, and one postponed action at a time. By the time you notice the damage, years have already passed. More importantly, this is not just about recognizing these habits. Awareness alone is not enough if it does not lead to action. The real purpose is learning how to break free before they steal another year of your life. Before another year disappears into routines that no longer serve you. Before you look back and realize that the only thing that truly needed to change was not your circumstances, but the discipline of your own mind. The first deadly habit is waiting for motivation, and it quietly destroys more potential than failure ever could. Most people delay action because they believe motivation will arrive first, as if progress depends on feeling inspired or confident. The Stoics rejected this thinking completely. They understood that motivation is not a cause but a result. Action comes first, and motivation follows. When you wait to feel ready, you are not being careful or patient, you are training your mind to obey comfort and avoid resistance. From a Stoic perspective, discipline is not about forcing yourself with emotion, but about acting according to reason. Discipline means doing what must be done even when the mind resists, even when energy feels low, and even when the outcome is uncertain. The mind naturally seeks ease, but ease is where growth stops. Each time you choose action without motivation, you weaken the voice of comfort and strengthen the part of you that can be trusted under pressure. Every small act done without motivation builds character. It teaches the mind that it does not need perfect conditions to move forward. Over time, this creates a quiet confidence that does not depend on mood. On the other hand, every time you wait for motivation, you reinforce hesitation. You teach your mind that discomfort is a signal to stop rather than a signal to grow. Slowly, waiting becomes a habit, and hesitation becomes your default response to life. The Stoics believed that freedom comes from self-command. When you act without motivation, you reclaim control over your behavior instead of surrendering it to emotions. This is why disciplined people appear calm and consistent while others feel trapped in cycles of starting and stopping. Motivation fades quickly, but discipline compounds. If you want real change, stop asking how to feel ready and start acting as the person you are trying to become. The second deadly habit is emotional attachment to outcomes, and it is one of the deepest sources of unnecessary suffering. You do not suffer because you fail. You suffer because you demand specific results and tie your peace to whether life obeys your expectations. Stoicism teaches a different approach entirely. The Stoics believe that you control your effort, your intention, and your response, but outcomes belong to fate, chance, and forces beyond your control. The moment you try to control results, you place your peace in something unstable. When you become obsessed with outcomes, fear quietly enters your decisions. You start measuring every action by what it might produce instead of whether it is right to do. This creates hesitation, overthinking, and paralysis. You delay starting because you are afraid of failing. You stop too early because you are afraid of not succeeding fast enough. In trying to protect yourself from disappointment, you end up limiting your own growth. Stoic philosophy teaches that excellence is found in effort, not reward. When you focus fully on doing your part well, the mind becomes calm and steady. You act because it is your duty, not because you are guaranteed a result. This mindset removes pressure from the present moment and allows you to give your best without fear. The irony is that detachment from outcomes often improves results, because action becomes cleaner, more consistent, and less emotionally driven. The moment you release your grip on outcomes and commit only to effort, something powerful happens. Anxiety loses its hold. Calm replaces fear. You stop negotiating with your emotions and start showing up consistently. You become harder to stop, not because you control the future, but because nothing in the future can control you. The third deadly habit is living in the past, and the Stoics considered this one of the most dangerous forms of self-imposed suffering. Regret is a form of mental slavery because it keeps your mind chained to moments that no longer exist. The Stoics warned that the past is already gone, yet people allow it to steal the present by endlessly replaying what cannot be changed. When you relive old mistakes, your body reacts as if the threat is still real, creating the same stress, shame, and emotional pain again and again. From a Stoic perspective, this is not reflection, it is punishment. Reflection is meant to extract a lesson and move forward. Regret keeps you stuck in self-judgment without progress. Each time you replay the past, you strengthen the habit of self-blame instead of self-command. You begin to identify yourself with old failures, convincing yourself that they define who you are now, even though the person who made those mistakes no longer exists in the same form. The Stoics taught that growth begins the moment you separate learning from suffering. You take the lesson, accept responsibility without cruelty, and then release the memory. Holding on to the past does not honor it, and it does not correct it. It only drains your energy and weakens your ability to act in the present. The past cannot be fixed, but your relationship with it can be mastered. When you stop living in the past, you reclaim mental space, emotional energy, and clarity. You act with more confidence because you are no longer dragging old versions of yourself into every decision. Stoic freedom is not forgetting what happened, but refusing to let what happened control what you do next. The fourth deadly habit is seeking validation from others, and it quietly erodes self-respect. When your sense of worth depends on opinions, praise, or recognition, your behavior slowly turns into a performance. You begin adjusting your words, your choices, and even your values to fit what will be accepted rather than what is true. Instead of living with integrity, you start living for approval, and over time you lose clarity about who you really are. The Stoics believe that placing your value in the hands of others is a dangerous form of dependence. Public opinion is unstable, inconsistent, and often uninformed. When you chase validation, you give strangers power over your emotions and your direction. One compliment can lift you, and one criticism can weaken you, not because either defines you, but because you allowed them to. This creates anxiety, self-doubt, and a constant need to be seen. Stoic philosophy teaches that inner approval matters more than public applause. True confidence comes from knowing that your actions align with your principles, even when no one is watching. When you stop needing to be noticed, you stop being controlled. You move with purpose instead of insecurity. You speak when it matters and remain silent when it does not. When you no longer seek validation, something powerful happens. Silence becomes confidence because you no longer need to explain yourself. Independence becomes strength because your worth is no longer negotiable. In freeing yourself from the need to be seen, you gain the ability to act fully as yourself. The fifth deadly habit is avoiding discomfort, and it is one of the most socially accepted ways to remain stuck. Comfort feels safe, familiar, and harmless, but over time it quietly kills ambition. The Stoics understood that a life built only around ease becomes fragile. When everything must feel good before you act, even small challenges begin to feel overwhelming, and the mind loses its tolerance for effort. Stoic thinkers trained themselves to endure discomfort intentionally. They practiced cold, hunger, physical effort, and silence, not as punishment, but as preparation. They believed that voluntary discomfort strengthened the mind and reduced fear of the uncontrollable. By facing difficulty on their own terms, they became less reactive when life imposed difficulty without warning. When you constantly run from discomfort, you teach your mind that pain is dangerous and must be avoided at all costs. This creates anxiety, hesitation, and dependence on comfort. Over time, even necessary struggles begin to feel unbearable. But when you face discomfort directly, you teach your mind a different lesson. You learn that pain is temporary, survivable, and often the gateway to growth. Growth does not live in ease. It lives on the other side of resistance. Each time you choose effort over comfort, you expand your capacity. You become harder to break, calmer under pressure, and more capable of acting when it matters most. This is not about suffering for its own sake. It is about becoming strong enough that discomfort no longer controls your choices. The sixth deadly habit is constant distraction, and it quietly steals more of your life than most people realize. A mind caught in endless noise, scrolling, and multitasking cannot create, reflect, or grow. Stoics valued focus above almost everything because they understood that attention is life energy. What you give your attention to, whether thought, conversation, or action, shapes who you become. Every moment spent on trivial distractions is a moment you are no longer shaping your own character or your own future. Distraction weakens your ability to think deeply, make wise decisions, and act with intention. It keeps the mind shallow, reactive, and dependent on external stimuli for stimulation. Over time, this habit trains you to be restless, impatient, and easily overwhelmed. You are living life at the mercy of noise, instead of living life on your own terms. Stoicism teaches that reclaiming focus is reclaiming control. When you intentionally choose what deserves your attention, you build mental clarity, inner peace, and strength. Silence is not empty, it is where creation, reflection, and discipline are born. When you break free from constant distraction, you become fully present, fully alive, and capable of mastering not just tasks, but yourself. Focus becomes a form of freedom, and in that freedom lies your power. Breaking free from these deadly habits requires daily self-observation, a practice the Stoics considered essential for a life of mastery. Every night, they would pause and reflect on their actions, asking themselves what they did right, what they did wrong, and what they could improve tomorrow. This was not about self-criticism or guilt, but about cultivating awareness, a clear, honest view of how they were living. Awareness allows you to see the patterns that guide your behavior, the habits that empower you, and the habits that quietly hold you back. When you practice this consistently, awareness becomes second nature. It alerts you when you are slipping into comfort, distraction, or attachment to outcomes. Awareness allows you to pause before reacting and choose deliberately instead of being swept along by impulse. Over time, this awareness strengthens your discipline because it shows you not only what must change, but why it matters. Discipline, in turn, creates freedom, the freedom to act intentionally, to live according to your principles, and to build the life you truly want rather than the life your habits impose. If you do not observe yourself, the world and your unconscious routines will decide for you. Days, weeks, and years will pass while you drift, thinking you are moving forward when in reality you are repeating the same cycles. Self-reflection is the bridge between unconscious living and conscious mastery. It is the practice that turns mistakes into lessons, effort into growth, and intention into unstoppable action. Without it, your habits, good or bad, will always be in control. Another key Stoic lesson is the practice of voluntary hardship, a principle that transforms how you experience life itself. When you deliberately challenge yourself, you train your mind and body to endure what others flee from, and suddenly, life's unavoidable difficulties lose much of their power over you. The Stoics intentionally exposed themselves to small hardships, not as punishment, but as preparation for living fully. Simple acts such as waking early, limiting unnecessary pleasures, or practicing restraint in daily habits are not trivial. They are exercises that sharpen focus, strengthen willpower, and teach resilience. By embracing voluntary hardship, you begin to understand that loss, discomfort, and challenge are temporary, manageable, and survivable. You stop clinging to comfort or fearing deprivation, because you have proven to yourself that you can live without excess. Each self-imposed restraint becomes a small victory, reinforcing your inner strength and teaching your mind that it is capable of much more than it thought. Over time, voluntary hardship rewires your relationship with difficulty. What once caused fear now becomes an opportunity to practice patience, self-mastery, and courage. In essence, the Stoics show us that freedom is not about avoiding struggle, it is about training yourself to stand firm when struggle inevitably arrives. True strength, according to Stoic philosophy, lies in emotional regulation. The Stoics trained themselves to pause before reacting, understanding that anger, fear, jealousy, and other strong emotions are not enemies but signals, clues about what your mind and body are experiencing. These emotions are natural, but untrained, they can hijack your decisions, disrupt your focus, and steal your peace. Responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively allows you to protect your inner calm while still engaging with reality effectively. Stoic mastery is not about suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist. It is about guiding them with reason, observing them without being ruled by them, and making choices aligned with your principles rather than your impulses. Every time you respond instead of react, you reinforce self-control and strengthen your ability to act under pressure. Over time, this practice transforms your relationships, your decisions, and your life, because nothing external can disturb you without your consent. Emotional regulation is the foundation of resilience, clarity, and true freedom, the kind that the Stoics considered the highest form of strength. Finally, remember this: you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. No matter how ambitious your dreams or how clear your intentions, they mean little without the daily actions and routines that support them. 2026 will not reward good intentions, promises to yourself, or fleeting bursts of motivation. It will reward discipline, consistency, and the small choices you make each day. Every habit you allow to control your life, whether it drains your energy, clouds your focus, or weakens your mind, will quietly shape the reality you wake up to tomorrow. The life you desire is built in the present, one conscious choice at a time, and the habits you cultivate today are the foundation of the freedom, strength, and growth you will experience in the years to come. Which habit are you finally ready to let die before it steals another year of your life? Freedom begins the moment you stop obeying the habits that weaken your soul. It begins when you recognize the patterns silently draining your energy, stealing your focus, and shaping your life without your consent. True freedom is not found in circumstances, comfort, or external approval, it is found in self-mastery. When you refuse to let distraction, fear, attachment, or avoidance dictate your choices, you reclaim control over your mind, your actions, and ultimately your destiny. Every habit you break, every moment you act with awareness, is a step toward a life lived on your own terms, guided by reason, courage, and purpose rather than by the silent forces that once held you captive. If you found this content valuable, please take a moment to like this video, follow, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments section. Your support not only motivates me to keep creating, but it also helps this message reach those who need it most, empowering more people to break free from habits that hold them back and live with focus, discipline, and purpose.